we want to present to you some things that are hard about APIs and API management, found in working with clients, and also a lookout about some things that are next. And it's great to have you back, Michael, and this time on the large screen, not just on small TV.
Hi. Glad to be here in my room. No, sorry, I tried to join this conference, but I had some private issues to deal with. That's the reason why I'm at home. So, but still, I try to do the session with Joachim, and I hope you enjoy it.
So we will start, won't we? You have the
Okay,
presentation.
Okay. I already pressed the share button, so you should see something in your room.
No.
No?
We see you twice. The tech guys look concentrated. There is something that can be done.
Yeah, there it is. Okay.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, so I think let's start. I'm not sure, should we introduce ourselves?
There's a bunch of people coming right now.
Okay.
The room fills. So it's about API management.
I just introduced myself again. I'm change agent focused on social technical architecture and also specialized in API management. And I'm involved in quite a few digital transformation journeys over the past decade. So this is all about my introduction. I guess you all know Joachim by now. So I think let's start. Right, there it is.
So API management is a lot about ecosystems, yeah, and we've heard about ecosystems and APIs sometimes already at this conference. Yeah, you heard Tanya from RBI speaking about the API-driven bank. You heard our team topologies authors talking about team APIs, so APIs between teams of people, not software APIs. So APIs are very important and they need to be tailored to the ecosystem where they are useful. And every ecosystem has very different factors to succeed and who can thrive in there. So if you think, for example, you're in the woods and you're picking blueberries, yeah, those blueberry plants, they won't grow in your garden necessarily in the sun or in the pot where you grow your tomato. And the tomato won't grow in the woods. And that's just the stuff we can see and really experience on the first sight. Yeah. Well, this plant belongs in that ecosystem and this doesn't. Yeah. What we don't see is all the fungi, all the microorganisms, all those other stakeholders that are also there, that are helping or are necessary that the ecosystem can thrive. And we humans in general aren't very good, I'm Greta now. We are usually not very good in perceiving all about ecosystems at first sight and need to do some research about it. So keep in mind, we're always talking about ecosystems, and in those ecosystems, certain APIs are useful. So, Michael.
Yeah, okay. So as we are participating on a BizTech conference, you may guess already that most problems that arise in the API management initiative are not technical problems. But I think we will come to that later again. So there's a German word for using the same water and fertilizer for every plant in your garden. So it's called in Germany the Gießkannenprinzip, so the watering can principle. So you just use the same watering can for everything. In English, you may call it one size fits all or even shotgun approach. That's why there is a shotgun on this picture. Well, what Joachim and me experienced over the last 8 years working in the field of API management, we noticed that often centralized IT departments were approached by business people with ideas about opening up their internal custom-built IT assets to the outside world over the internet, which is kind of a mess for them. So, of course, a centralized IT department has to provide like 1 to 5 APIs, And we'll try to do it as efficient as possible by just buying a vendor-based solution which has a label API management on it, and just adopt it. And of course, those vendor solutions are not cheap. They need complex technology to be integrated in your IT environment. And you actually end up setting up technology and processes for 6 to 12 months, maybe, but you're not doing API management. You're just integrating technology. And then we often notice that API management is available in this organization, but the amount of APIs are not increasing because nobody wants to use it. It became a complicated subsystem created by people that maybe were too much focused on setting up API management tools instead of making it something desirable for their colleagues. So in the end, it's obvious that we need more APIs in an API management catalog in order to show the value of our efforts to our bosses, right? So the next step is to tell people that they have to use it for everything from now on. So including manual procedures, vendor trainings, some Excel sheets you have to fill in, fill out, and so on. And well, that might work for B2B APIs, but at the same time, you show all your freshly hired software engineers that work on microservices that they apply to Hell, because these ecosystems are different. B2B is completely different to APIs in a microservice environment, for example. So let's take a look at this picture. You see an ecosystem named Ocean. But if you take a closer look at the picture, you notice that there are a lot of citizens of this ecosystem with several requirements. There are fishes, plants, snails, plankton, corals, shrimp. Some of them live on top of each other in symbiosis. Some of them need rocks or caves. So ecosystems are about their inhabitants. And yes, they all need water. What would be a gateway or catalog in the domain of API management? But based on their nature, they have additional needs. And even the word water is too generic in this case, because every ecosystem citizen on this picture needs it for something else. So how does one size fits all work here in the area of API management if you try to do it for multiple ecosystems at once?
So, and what API management is trying to do is to create shops for APIs to be found and used. Maybe even if you weren't aware that you wanted to use an API before, or that specific one. Or you want to know, oh, there is a new API that fits my need much better. So in this shop paradigm, you see, well, an overwhelmingly large number of different products. And you see products that fit the same purpose. Yeah? And if you think about companies that really drive their API vision, you should think about in your API management systems there, the developer portals, the self-service portals, somehow it looks a little like that. Yeah? But that is not, like Michael and I try to describe, the first thing that happens when a company starts with APIs and API management, because the first thing that people will ask for is, well, is it secure? If it goes outside, is it secure? Yeah? And that it goes, by the way, both ways. Is it secure to use this external API? Yeah? Not just is it secure to expose our API? Yeah? And who can use it? And people want it very efficiently. Yeah? And it should be resilient to all kinds of, well, scaling, threats, yeah, some malicious attacks on the infrastructure. And at the end, it should be easy to use. So we had this nice, from Ivan Kirnic, we had this nice IKEA example, yeah, building together, what was it, Heiss? Yeah, there were some steps on the road where you didn't really feel like it was a good customer experience. And of course, with API management, if I want adoption, if I want all my, well, hard work to succeed because the stuff is used and generates value, then I have to have this good self-service experience. So now I just see myself, which is pretty boring, I know I am. Michael, can you bring back the slides? Yeah. So API management probably is very different, and we'll use another picture here to explain a little what we mean. Yeah. You see on both sides there are ships. Yeah. They both are thought to sail the oceans, and they're both thought to bring you something from A to B. Yeah? But those ships follow completely different expectations about from their users. Yeah? You see the girls playing with their ship. This ship may bring them to fairyland. It's just enough, just holding the two of them. It doesn't really have to move. It just moves in their minds. Yeah. On the right side, you also have a ship. Yeah? This is completely different. There's no romance with that at all. Yeah. You don't care what is in the other containers. You don't care where it is, as long it comes in time. Yeah. The supply chain just has to work. Yeah. But still, it's the same. It's a ship. Yeah? And with API management, this is pretty the same story. Yeah? So you will find organizations, teams that just start with something that fulfills their needs and their idea what they need from an API management. And then the stuff grows and the expectations and demands and requirements change and you do something completely different. So it's completely normal that companies start, for example, with some open source thing or just some API management service in some cloud, and then they buy some vendor software, and then they understand that doesn't really do what they need, and they go to a different vendor or a different cloud, or they start to think, is the make or buy approach at all what makes sense for us? Perhaps we need a different API management or different API management solutions in our own organization. Yeah? And of course, there's so much that is similar. Yeah, APIs have life cycles. You need to adhere to the communication specs or the spec of the API itself. Yeah, you need tools. This is also the same. Yeah, like ship and ship. Yeah, but there's also a lot of stuff that can be completely different. Yeah, processes, for example. You won't have the same process when you have sensitive data exposed to some external stakeholders that you will have if you work internally with, well, say, less sensitive data in your secure development environment, just as an example. So, and this leads to our notion about you may have API management in very different domains. And I'm not so sure if everybody knows what we are thinking of if we're talking about those domains. So you can elaborate.
Yeah, basically, there are generic problem domains, which means you can buy something off the shelf because everybody has the same problem, like cloud infrastructure. That's a generic problem domain. You want to deploy something and you need VMs or containerized environment. But there are also supporting domains that support your business model, and there is your core business domain. So depending on the ecosystem you're looking at, API management might be something generic, which results in a buy decision, for example, buy off-the-shelf decision. It could be a part of your supporting domain or even your business core domain, and that would result in making your own or even giving the autonomy to your teams that they can bring their own stack. For example, in a microservice environment, you want full autonomy of the engineering teams. So maybe you leave it up to them. So it's all about API management, but it's completely different depending on the perspective that you take.
Yeah, that's not theoretical problems, but that's what we see organizations and teams pondering and discuss and work on. So now that we've put up problems, yeah, one size fits all won't work. Yeah, you have to think about your ecosystems. You have to understand your stakeholders and all the other stuff. So, what are you going to do now? Yeah. So this is now the question: how do we come to the constructive part? Yeah. How do we address and solve those problems? Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, before talking about what's next, we should talk about what's now or what now. Because those things that are next require some level of maturity to advance to the new shiny diamonds. So at first, in order to get out of this chaos, we need to look for those places where one size fits all causes too much damage. So there are a ton of possible classes of API management. And after you found those classes in your organization, usually the bargaining starts. So there are cases where one size fits all. There are cases where we need to consider two variations of API management. And there are cases where all of them are totally different. So here on this picture, you see unmanaged APIs. Nobody wants to talk about it. Everybody has unmanaged APIs. And maybe it's good to have some unmanaged APIs because there is no risk of failure in having them. So let's just leave it be. Don't integrate those kind of internal private APIs to an overblown API management stack, for example. But there is also the class of B2B, which where problems result in outages for your partners. And it's a real marketplace. So you have to help onboard those partners to your platform. So it's a really different interpretation of API management. And then you have those internal APIs, like in a microservices environment, or private internal APIs, like internal team API stuff that they are using, which is not exposed to the outside, or maybe some shared internal APIs, like stuff where, I don't know, where you do virus checks or things like that, security checks and stuff like that, or OCR services and such. So there are a lot of different classes, and maybe one size fits all, but in larger organization, it's often the case that you need to diversify your API management strategy a little bit, not like 20 different stacks, but at least take a look at it where you cause damage and where it's beneficial to have one solution.
Yeah. And at some point in time, you need to get the stakeholders of your APIs to understand a lot of different things. So to understand, like Tanya from RBI told us, my business people didn't understand why we should have these APIs. Now they know they can associate, business problems or solutions or improvements. And now they know why they want to have APIs. But what Michael and I saw when talking with clients over the years is that there is often a kind of feeling, I think we've all understood this. We know what we need. Yeah, we really know. And companies like Cross come in and help them. And then there are some questions. And then suddenly, oh, really? Yeah, we have these other stakeholders too. We never thought about them. And no, the client, if you're a bank, for example, the client is the bank client. It's not this other team that needs our API. So what does the client expect? And then I can deduce what the others in our organization will need from us. So there's a lot to discuss and learn about, and education is key to come to, some common understanding and terminology and discussion, and also the factors to do the decision making on the entire topic. So one of the most, I think, misunderstanding of APIs is, APIs is just interfaces. Yeah? I always say, interfaces is stuff that is either technically or from, for example, for a governance aspect, mandated. You have to have this interface, but you have no motivation to make it better than it needs to be. Yeah? You're not going to brag about that you built that interface. Yeah? You won't call your team, we are the, interface 67.5B team. Yeah? No, you won't do this. APIs have a different notions mostly. APIs are more like a product, a service you want to advertise, you want to succeed, you want to improve. Yeah? And this is part of this educational curve that organizations have to go through, not as an entire bank or as an entire car manufacturer. Different parts in the organizations at different paces really belongs where they are, what they need, but they need this understanding.
Yeah, and APIs, of course, are today's standard of business interaction. So the idea is to hide technical complexity of your organization from the outside and expose business capabilities as easy as possible. So even business people need to learn about all those buzzwords on this picture. And of most important thing is like API is a product, and that it has a product life cycle. And of course, if we talk about future proofness and sustainability, of course you need to take a look at your digital value chains as well, because if something is bad in your value chain, that will have an impact on everybody on top of this chain, on the end of this chain.
And in the course that many companies think about how they can improve, how they can digitalize even more. This term of a value chain, and to understand where are in there and where value is really generated, and what our role as each of us as stakeholders are in those value chains is extremely important. And you will find a lot of misconceptions about that too. Yeah. So one client of me, he is an enterprise architect in insurance. He once made the nice statement, we are a 180-year-old insurance. We are digitalizing since 35 years. And when we are ready in 20 years, we will have digitalized the old crap. Yeah? It will still be crap, but digital. Yeah. So, and you hear this kind of phrase very often. So if you have the impression that it's just the same old crap, then perhaps we haven't really understand where we create value in digitalizing. Yeah. And that is part of all those discussions. Yeah. And that is also the differentiator between a valuable API and some interface.
Yeah, yeah. And APIs will help speed that up. So it's important to take a look at all these value chains, ecosystems that you're trying to create, new partners, new opportunities. But of course, you need to also help to transform your existing partners and customers to these new kind of value chains as well, and help them participate in this kind of new game. So that's also part of API management, teaching others, because there is no ecosystem when nobody hops on your platform. So about
I think you're
okay.
more
About value chains. This is nothing specific to API management, but I would love to motivate you to take a look into Simon Wardley's methodology of Wardley mapping, which is kind of an instrument to map value chains and discuss the level of maturity of certain components of this value chain. And this is really important because you see all these flaws in your ideas when you do that. So Wardley mapping, and if you are familiar with domain-driven design and team topologies, there is a new book by Susanne Kaiser which connected the dots between these three thinking models, methods, and put it in a new context, and it's really powerful. So if you're looking for another good book besides team topologies and dynamic reteaming, then I think in the area of creating valuable APIs, this is might be really a good book. So yeah. What's next in API management? So we talked about problems and possible solutions and new ways of thinking when we create these new kind of digital value chains. But there's also some kind of technical trends evolving at the moment. So you may have all heard about event-driven architecture, which again became quite famous due to serverless computing in the cloud. Serverless computing in the cloud, of course, is very, very cost efficient, and that's motivating a lot of people to build asynchronous systems. So event-driven systems have an asynchronous nature, and if you take a closer look, you will see that this is just another form of APIs, but we are quite familiar now in form of dealing with synchronous APIs like REST, HTTP-based APIs, SOAP, but we are really at the beginning of dealing with asynchronous APIs at the moment. And the technology behind it is still somehow, I think, too complicated to do more interesting things with it. Like, for example, what I mentioned here, sharing real-time business events with partners. Because at the moment, when we share business events with partners, they just get a representation of what has happened during the last, I don't know, day, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, or something like that. A representation of a flow of information that's been put into a classic database. And synchronous APIs allow our partners that they access this information whenever they want, but they are already behind due date. And I think this concept of event-driven or asynchronous APIs might open up a few more business opportunities, like sharing a flow of events, real-time events with business partners. Those business partners could do something completely different with this flow of events than my organization does, for example. So if you have any ideas for what that could be used besides, I don't know, trading apps and things like that, so please just contact us. I think this will be something interesting in the next years, but maybe not now.
But there's already a standard about it. Async API evolving. So if you look at the slides later with high resolution, you will see that there is a 100. This is not that's not the level of the specification. That's the level of that sample. The specification is already at T240, and it's been developing now over about a timeline of 5 years. And they're already working on the third major release of the spec at the moment. And there are vendors that are already implementing it. So it's not just a bunch of nerds. But one example is the company Solace with their object broker. They are supporting the spec. And so it's something from this what's next with API management to look into. And that's what we wanted to tell you.
So yeah, there are some things evolving at the moment that happened in the REST API field that are now happening in the field of asynchronous APIs. And I think it's clear how those things will evolve. But even if there's this kind of new technology or this new shiny new diamonds, we need to come up with new ideas what to do with it. So like, I don't know, you may have heard about Open Data Initiative in Europe. I think that could be something interesting in this concept of open data, not just sharing the data, sharing the real-time information, for example. Yeah. Okay.
Questions? I think we're through. But we're not out of the world, so if questions pop up later, you know how to reach us.
Let's stay in contact. Connect via LinkedIn or Twitter, or I don't know. Or maybe we see each other in Zadar next year, or in another place in Croatia when I'm able to join this great conference in person.
Again. Okay, cool. Thank you.
So,